And we're coming to you live from the Built Ford Tough Studio. Boomer Esiason, Greg Giannotti. It's Boomer and Gio on the Fan. Simulcast across the country on CBS Sports Network and wherever you are in the free Odyssey app. Good Thursday morning. We are getting closer and closer to Christmas. We've got a Thursday night game tonight. We've got Saturday games in the NFL, and things will shake out, and we'll see who's going to the playoffs, and more importantly around here, who's going to stay in 2025 and where that number one overall pick is going to go. And I have now decided the two things that realistically could happen that I want to see for both the Jets and the Giants are this. Now, I still want John Gruden over anybody, but I don't think realistically it's going to happen because no one has the guts to hire him. But the thing that I think can realistically happen for the Jets, and it gets more and more real every day, and even our buddy Phil, Woot, said that he thinks it's a good idea. So if he's co-signing it, that means that it's something serious. Mike Vrabel to the Jets is the one thing that I want to happen. I'll be rooting for. And the other is no longer Cam Ward and his offensive coordinator. I am now rooting for Shedeur Sanders to be a New York Giant because after what I heard on a Pac-Man Jones podcast that Jerry will play for everybody coming up in a little bit, the Giants would take him. He would come here, Deion would co-sign it, and here we go. You want to spark a franchise that's been dead for a while? That's how you do it. Shedeur Sanders to the Giants. I think it could happen. I think it could work. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. I'm a little sad this morning. I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay, all right.
But I will agree with you that, yes, it sounds like the Giants have spent a lot of time out there talking to Deion, talking to and watching Colorado, and whether it be Shedeur or whether it be Travis Hunter, I mean, they are locked in there. So it would be interesting. It's all going to come down to what happens with the Raiders. Because if the Raiders end up with the number one pick, they're
taking them. Yeah, I mean, the Giants have to get the number one overall pick. I just thought, though, that there was a chance that even if the Giants did get the number one overall pick, that Shedeur and Deion would say, no, we prefer Vegas, and let's figure this thing out where you can get Cam Ward and we go to Vegas and everybody's happy. But after hearing Deion, I mean, I really think, Deion is all about the showmanship. We see him in a million commercials. We know what his playing career is like. But I really think, and I've been surprised with the way that he has handled this situation, because so far, I mean, he's doing everything I think that NFL owners and general managers want to hear. Like, we were hearing more crap out of the Caleb Williams camp this time last year than we've heard anything about Deion and Shedeur about making things happen. Now, I know he did say one thing about, he'll play where we want him to play or something like that. I mean, maybe there's a few organizations that ended up at the top of that list, like the Jacksonville Jaguars, or maybe he didn't want Shedeur to go. But, I mean, you could end up in a hell of a lot more places. I know they've been worse places than the Giants, and I know they've been down for a while, but it's still the Giants. And, I mean, you've had Dallas where Deion played, San Francisco, NFC teams that he understands that, even Atlanta. So he knows the Giants. He knows the NFC. He knows that they're a good organization. He knows across history, not recently. And he probably knows John Mara a little bit. So the fact that he said what he said, I mean, if they get the number one pick, it's Shedeur Sanders. It's happening.
Yeah, I would say that Deion wants his son being drafted number one overall. That's what he wants. And he's not. It doesn't seem like he's going to mess around with either team or any team for that matter. Maybe if it was another team or so that Deion felt like wouldn't be great. Man, what is going on in here?
You're sneezing.
Is this because of the plants?
No, I mean, you've been sick for 2 weeks.
No, I'm not sick. I'm telling you, I'm not sick.
It has nothing to do with the way you sound?
No.
The sneezing?
I feel like I sound a lot better.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
Anyway, so I just think that it really just comes down to one thing. Who's got that first pick in either place? Deion will sign off.
Which is new to me.
Which is good.
And there might have been people in the last few weeks that thought that. I didn't until yesterday. Even when I heard Shedeur with his teammate in that podcast, they talked about Malik Neighbors. I was even skeptical then because I thought it would be Deion that would be working behind the scenes and saying, nah, you're not going to go to the Giants. But after hearing Deion yesterday, I mean, I I am fully on board with the fact that this is a marriage that could happen if the Giants get the first overall pick.
Right, and when he was in town for Travis Hunter's support for the Heisman and everything else, they're throwing out there in the street he and Malik Neighbors. So I'm wondering if they have the same agent or something. There could be some of that going on right now. I have no idea. But look, he wants to be the number 1 overall pick. That's really what it comes down to.
And I think that he will be. I mean, the only way that he wouldn't is if there's some sort of injury that happens or
somehow the Patriots get to the number 1 pick.
Right, exactly.
And they can't work out a trade where they can make sure that they get Travis Hunter if that's who they want.
Yes, right. So in that situation, I'm sure, I mean, it would be disappointing, but it would be understandable why he wouldn't be the number 1 overall pick. But, yeah, so those are two things I would accept in this offseason and get excited about both those franchises. I'd be excited about Cam Ward as well, but much more excited about Shedeur Sanders. So if you give me in this offseason with these two franchises that have had a real tough time, you give me Shedeur Sanders and you give me Mike Vrabel to the Jets, I'll take that. Because Vrabel, although he's not Gruden, to me is the next best thing. Because he has got that personality. He's got that when he walks into the building, you know who the boss is. He's got experience as a head coach, a successful head coach in the NFL. He comes from big pedigree. I mean, he's a Western Pennsylvania guy. He's not taking any crap. Like, he is the personality that we want for the Jets. Now, originally, and I still am not totally sure, originally I didn't think that he would look at the Jet job as something that was palatable for him, and he still may not. If he's got other opportunities and multiple opportunities, he may not pick the Jets. But if I'm Woody Johnson and there's any inkling of interest for Mike Vrabel, I'm making sure that I give him the biggest contract out of anybody because he is one of the few guys that is available that I think could work here.
Yeah, I mean, it makes 100% sense. It's like the John Gruden thing.
Yeah, right. Not quite as good.
But I mean,
not quite as good.
As much as I want Aaron Glenn to get a job, he deserves it. He's worked his way up, and he's the defense coordinator, one of the better teams in the league, although a number of his defensive players are gone for the year, and he's going to have to manufacture something here. If they start giving up, points like they gave up against the Bills last week, it's not going to be a great reflection on him. But I think, you know what it's about, honestly, and it's about connecting with these players and which personality can actually connect with these players. And I think Aaron's personality, while he's not gregarious, he's not a big personality. I think for the most part, everywhere he's been, he has connected with the players that he has coached, which is really a very important aspect. I mean, he was a really good defensive back when he played in the NFL. He was a first-round draft pick of the Jets. I mean, I could see that, that kind of thing being a little bit more palatable for Jet fans because he's one of them. That could be an interesting hire here, although I wouldn't want that for him. I'd want him to go somewhere else.
Yeah,
I think Mike Vrabel would be, or John Gruden, are the personalities to bring in here. Now, the question is, are they going to do the GM first? Because if they're doing the GM first, then all of a sudden that throws a whole different set of circumstances into the mix and variables.
Yeah, absolutely. And those GMs generally, just like we talk about general managers in baseball, don't want to bring in a guy who they feel like is going to have more power than them. They have to bring in someone. There's got to be a previous relationship. And that's why that John Robinson was interviewed, and you got excited about that because they had worked together. You can't put two guys together who don't know each other at all.
Well, just remember, Dimitroff knows, I'm sure, Vrabel from his days in New England. I don't know if they overlapped there or anything, but they all were under that kind of umbrella.
But you also can't hire – all right, let's just say – they hired you as the general manager. You would walk in and you would want someone like Mike Vrabel because I know what type of coach you'd want.
Yeah.
But there are general managers out there that might not know Mike Vrabel that'll go, this guy, we're talking about someone who's going to come in and he's got too much personality. Let's bring in that he's a defensive coach. Let's bring in a guy like Kevin O'Connell. That's work. Let's bring in a guy like Zach Taylor. That's work there. Let's try to find that next guy who's an offensive mind. And then, and me and you, Woody, we'll run this organization. We'll let that guy just do what he needs to do from an X's and O's standpoint. That's what I'd be afraid of when you hire the general manager first, because it happens all over the place.
I know that, but I also know that, Zach Taylor and Kevin O'Connell landed in the right cities.
They did.
And they also were very fortunate, especially in Cincinnati, that they were able to draft Joe Burrow. And I don't think that he's going. I don't think Zach Taylor's going anywhere. And I think Joe Burrow likes him. And I think that the offensive numbers anyway bear out, huge success. So why would you mess with that coach? But again, Zach Taylor wouldn't be the right coach for the Jets. You know what I mean? It just doesn't fit. I don't know if Kevin O'Connell, even though he was a Jet, I think he was a Jet at one time.
He was, yeah.
He would be the right coach for the Jets. And given all the enormity of this job, or the Giant job for that matter, and all that comes along with it, is got to be somebody who's got, a name, a personality.
Got to be able
backbone.
to take a punch.
Yes.
You got to look at him and say, that guy can take a punch. That guy doesn't have a glass jaw. Because you're going to get punched in the face many times all over the place by the owner, by the media, by the players, by Rich Cimini, by everybody. You're getting punched in the face. Can you take that punch, and how are you going to take that punch?
I actually, speaking of Rich Cimini, I spoke with him yesterday.
Nice.
He's writing an article on, Aaron Rodgers and whether or not, his legacy is tarnished because of what happened here.
No.
And I'm like, that's exactly what I said.
No.
I said, you know why? No, because it really all stems back to his first injury. I mean, he never really got off the ground when he first got here. And I would say that over the last 4 or 5 weeks, we've seen the best of Aaron Rodgers. And, quite frankly, that's why it's so enticing to think that if he hadn't gotten hurt, where they would be right now with a guy that could have played 17 games last year and could have played 17 games this year, a 34-game career for the Jets would look completely different than what it does right now. And, I actually, when you look at, and I went back and did this after I spoke with Rich yesterday, I kind of compared him to Peyton Manning. Like, his statistics are very, very similar to Peyton Manning, believe it or not.
Over the course of their career.
Over the course of their careers. And you got to remember, Aaron didn't start for 3 years. He sat for 3 years, did nothing. So his statistics would probably eclipse Peyton Manning had he played those first 3 years. But their numbers are really, really close. And I went back and looked at them. I'm like, wow. And, Peyton was a few more all-pros than Aaron has. But MVPs are right there. The touchdown passes are right there. The interceptions, oddly enough, Peyton has thrown, I think, twice as many interceptions as Aaron Rodgers. So I was kind of correct in putting them in the same box because it's the only thing that Aaron hasn't done that Peyton did do is Peyton went to another organization and went to 2 Super Bowls and won one.
Yep.
Tom Brady went to another organization and won a Super Bowl, with Tampa Bay. And unfortunately, Aaron, I tried to go down that path, and it hasn't worked out for him. So I said to Rich, Rich, his first ballot Hall of Famer without a doubt, and his legacy will always be intact when it comes to overall playing and statistics and the numbers that he's put up. And if he wants to play another year, who knows where those statistics will end up? They'll certainly surpass Peyton in a lot of different categories.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't tarnish his legacy. I mean, obviously, the way we feel about him here and what happened here, and if you're a Jets fan or someone's been paying attention to it, you're never going to forget it. But as far as him as a player and a Hall of Famer, it doesn't tarnish it. Now, I started watching the Aaron Rodgers documentary on Netflix, and I don't want to make it seem like I'm criticizing the documentary because I'm not. I think that they did they've done a really, really nice job. It's produced very well. There's people who are going to really like it. I started watching. It was a half hour that I got into it, and I had to bail. And it's a me thing. It's not a documentary thing. I will admit that. I can't take any more of him. I can't. All the things that happened, and I think the reason why, even though I'm not a Jets fan, I desperately wanted I wanted this to work. And we were so excited and wanted it to work. And then to watch all the things that he did great, and him coming through high school, and this and that, and everything's great. And then they show, him and running out with the flag and different angles of that and everything else. And it just reminded me of the whole thing blew up. And I was like, I can't. And then some of the other things about him going through rehab, I'm like, I've heard too many interviews. I've seen him too much. I can't take any more of him. I can't do it. I'm not interested any longer. I was interested in Aaron Rodgers because I thought he was going to come here and save the Jets, and we were going to have some incredible couple of years, and maybe they made it to the playoffs. Maybe they make it to a Super Bowl. It was going to be magical. Now I'm out. So I can't listen to him on McAfee any longer. I can't watch this documentary. Half hour. I gave it a shot, open mind. So it's a me problem. I'm not saying don't go watch it. Go watch it. But for me, I had to bail after a half hour. I was like, I am not interested in Aaron Rodgers any longer.
All right, so I sit between two guys, Jerry Reck on my right here,
Loved
who
it.
loves it, and you on my left, who doesn't really care for it. And now I'm going to have to. I'll get into it, during the vacation when I have some free time.
I think you will like it. I think you'll like it. And I think a lot of people are going to like it. It has hit that. When you eat too much of one snack over like a course of a time, and you're like, I got to stop. I just can't have this any longer.
Can't have that snack anymore.
I had this every single day, and I can't do it. I've now lost my taste for this thing. Like that's basically what it is at this point. I'm like, I've eaten too much of this.
Yes.
Now it tastes weird, and I got to get away from it.
I kind of get it. I understand where you're coming from. I mean, every day you're asked to, give an opinion about something he's done or something he said, and I know it's driving you crazy.
No, I understand that, and I don't want him back. I feel like this whole thing is over, and I'm hearing you and the reasons why you think he should come back. I don't. It didn't work, and you gotta move on. But as far as just going through his whole life now, I'm just don't care. And I also think, he's like some of these things, when you're him and you've got a lot of money and you've decided to remain single like he has and, not have a family and then detach yourself from your blood family, your mom, your dad, your brothers and everything else. He's just out there searching for things he's never going to get answers to. I really think that the way he's decided to live his life has made him do the things that he's done. Meaning that you give anybody a lot of money and a lot of time, they're going to end up doing drugs in Costa Rica. They'll find their way there. They will, because they got nothing else to do. So it's I'm going to go to Egypt. I'm going to go here. I'm going to go search for this. I'm going to go search for that. You're not going to get any of those answers. You just happen to have a lot of time and a lot of money.
You think that he went to these places and didn't come back with answers?
I think he's going to tell you he came back with answers, but
he has told us he's come back with answers.
Yeah, I don't believe that he has.
But you don't believe that he has.
Well, he said that he was being stroked by 1,000 of his dead relatives. That's an answer to what exactly? He got high. Okay. There's lots of people who have gotten high over the centuries. So what? This whole he's so interesting thing. Is he? He's just a guy with a lot of money and a lot of time on his hands.
Well, and he does a lot of unique things that, I think somebody like Eddie would appreciate it.
I do.
See? He does.
But Eddie doesn't like people who make a lot of money. Not true.
That is not true.
What?
He's got
I gave that to you for a layup, and you're going to agree with him? I thought we were working in tandem on that.
I'm just saying, but he has.
You always bust his balls for the communism thing and getting on you, and now I say I alley-oop that for you, and you dropped it.
I can't because he's got Shorehaven Wealth Partners.
Yeah.
If you have Shorehaven Wealth Partners working for you, I think this whole thing is a facade with Eddie. I think he is he and Marion are yarn entrepreneurs, tycoons. Yes,
the yarn tycoons,
and
the power couple of yarn.
There's a pot of gold at the end of his little
string.
Retirement rainbow. I'm telling you.
No, but I just, I don't know. Maybe Eddie would appreciate it. I don't.
I will say this real quickly, and we're going to get to it on the other side. I do wake up a little bit sad this morning. Back in 2019, I put a lot of time and effort in educating Al on a particular hockey player, and Al came to know who Capo Caco was. And I had such high hopes for him. And unfortunately, it never really materialized for him, and the Rangers did what they should have done. They traded him just because he was unhappy, and he always seemed to be the scapegoat for this team, which is amazing to me. But he never really unleashed his true potential for our team. And then they ended up trading him to Seattle yesterday. They got a couple draft picks back and a defenseman, Will Borgen, who I know very little about. So it feels wrong. It doesn't feel right this morning if you're a Ranger fan. I don't feel right about it. We always think our players are better than they really probably are, or the way they are looked at by other teams around the league. And I think we all had high hopes for this kid. And unfortunately, it never, ever happened. And he got very little power play time. So, his scoring was a little bit depressed. If he had maybe a few more opportunities there, maybe he would have scored some more goals. But when you got the number 2 overall pick and it doesn't work out, that's a really disappointing day.
Yeah, why?
That's why I'm sad. Sugar muffin.
Yeah. Well, Zach Wilson, number 2 overall pick. Capo Caco, number 2 overall pick.
I mean, Capo was. That was amazing. Capo was here for 6 years.
It was that long, huh?
6 years.
Wow. Now, there's not another guy on the Rangers named Kakkonen, is there?
Yes, there is.
Oh, there is? Okay. Because I thought C-Mac made a mistake.
No.
He was saying cock. He was like Kako and then Kakkonen and Cockin.
That was the caller who said it first, though.
Oh, okay.
They traded for another guy who is that last name.
So they got Kako and Kakkonen?
No, they don't have Kako anymore. They left.
They had Kako and Kakkonen?
Yes, for about a week, if maybe 4 days, 5 days.
Okay. So, I mean, that's
But it's really, I mean, like,
it's confusing.
I keep saying, like, your number 1 center is minus 17. Your star right winger, who you just gave, $7.5 million to, is minus 14. I mean, it's that everybody always looks at the bottom. It's not the bottom part of the roster that is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's the top 6 that are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? And the goalie has been okay. He's not been great. We went through this with Igor last year, but I don't know what the hell Chris Drury's doing now. I feel like he's got a mutiny on his hand in that locker room, and it looks like guys are not engaged. They're not playing hard enough. They're not doing what they did last year, and this could be a waste of a hockey season for the Rangers.
Feels that way right now.
It does.
All right.
Feels like we're right in the middle of it.
Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network.